can't be that bad. Nah, what the frick?
Yeah, Maya, I agree. What the actual happened? Hi everyone, today I'm going to give my review of Joker Folie à Deux. Now I know I'm kinda late on the trend, but I really wanted to get this feeling I have out of my chest because I'm really furious right now. This movie is like my Roman Empire for real right now. Spoiler alert for the rest of the video because I am going to spoil this movie in its entirety. So before giving my opinion on the movie, I have to mention why I don't think it should have been made in the first place. It's no secret to anyone that this first movie was supposed to be a standalone movie with no sequels incoming, and it wasn't supposed to be related to anything from the DC universe too. This first movie was literally a masterpiece, and there's a reason why I got this poster behind me, you know? It was an adaptation from the Joker, from the DC Comics books, like we've never seen before. Instead of the usual funny haha clown that fights a guy disguised as a bat, we got the depressed wannabe comedian Joker that life didn't treat fairly. So this movie was a sadder approach to the Joker, and I personally really enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting anything related to Batman. I just wanted to see a good movie separated from Batman and based on and inspired by a comic book character. Even if Bruce Wayne is in the movie, he doesn't appear as the usual Bat we know and love, and he doesn't steal the show away from Arthur Fleck, aka the Joker. Well, technically, not anymore as of 2024, but we'll get into that later. The first Joker movie was amazing. I loved everything about it. The story was full of emotions and surprises. It was a dark and twisted story, and I loved it. The cinematography, the music, everything about it. So in a timeline where the same people who worked on this first movie would try to make a sequel, there's no way that in this timeline they would ruin this first Joker movie, right? Well, that would be wrong and foolish to assume because that's just what they did. This sequel should not have been made because it ruins our watch time of the first one. If you liked the first one as much as I did, you will feel betrayed by this sequel. So like I said previously, Joker was supposed to be a standalone movie, and Todd Phillips, the director, didn't want to make a sequel at first, but the profit that Warner Brothers made with this first movie probably was the reason why they made a sequel. Somehow, these greedy minds at Warner Bros. Convinced Todd and Joaquin Phoenix, the actor interpreting Joker, to come back for a sequel. The estimated profit that they made from the first movie is around $437 million. That's a lot of money. So you know damn well that they would eventually make a sequel to gain even more profit from this franchise. But little did they know that Joker Folie à Deux would make $37.8 million in its first weekend, which in stats would be 3 times less than during the opening weekend of the first movie. So that's gotta hurt Warner Bros, right? It should be a wake-up call to them. You know, you don't need to make sequels to make money, you know? You just have to make good original movies and you need to put effort in them. And you don't even have to have a budget of $200 million. Yes, you heard me correctly. Joker Folie à Deux had a budget of $200 million, while the first one had a $60 million budget, around 3 times lower. And look how great it turned out to be. It's not just a question of budget, you just need to work hard and put the effort needed in these projects, which they did not do in this sequel. Now you're probably asking yourself, why? Why do I say all of this? Why did I say that this sequel ruined its predecessor? Well, I'll try to convince y'all throughout this whole video why I believe that happened and why I received this movie so poorly. But before talking about the mediocrities of this movie, let's talk about what I actually liked in this movie. Spoiler alert, this list will be short. First of all, you gotta admit, this movie looks beautiful. The cinematography did not disappoint, just like in the first movie. Shout out to the camera and lighting department on this one. I really enjoyed a lot of specific shots, especially when there's only one source of light. One little source of light, actually. For example, there's a scene where Arthur lights up his cigarette in his cell, and I really did like this shot specifically. It was really a beautiful movie. Another thing that I liked about this movie was some specific moments. Not scenes, moments. My favorite one, for example, is right before the explosion, when Arthur is being declared guilty by the judge. The moment he starts to laugh and there's this one guy that jumps on him. I really liked that moment until the explosion happened, you know? But some specific moments like this were pretty good in this movie. I really was on the edge of my seat sometimes. I kind of felt like Martin Scorsese, you know? Absolute cinema. Another thing that I liked, and that is pretty controversial in the community, so controversial take alert. I kinda like the ending, not gonna lie. I know some of y'all didn't like the way that guy killed Arthur and how he portrayed himself to be kind of Heath Ledger's Joker, but I don't think they're the same guy, you know? I just think it's a reference for the quote-unquote fan service. I know that was kind of a stab in the back to Christopher Nolan because he explicitly said not to do that in the first movie, in that scene when Arthur put a smile on his face with blood coming out from his mouth, you know? It was originally supposed to be him cutting a smile, just like Heath Ledger's, but Christopher Nolan said no, and now that he's gone with Universal instead, I think they saw an open door, and they did it anyway. So I didn't like that, but what I did like is the irony of his death. He kind of dies in the same way that Murray died in the first movie. Remember that host that Joker killed live on television? Well, right before killing him, he said he got what he deserved, you know? The same thing happens to Arthur at the end of the second movie. So it's kind of ironic, and I kind of like it. But I agree that it is not perfect, but I kind of like the meaning of it, you know? So they made a movie, wasn't that great, so we gotta give them some good appreciation points, you know? And for the last thing that I kind of liked about this movie was the acting. Yes, I believe Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga did an absolutely great job at portraying their character. They weren't perfect, but they did a great job. And I really was convinced by their character, so they did a nice job. And yet, that's pretty much all I liked about this movie. But now we gotta talk about the okay things coming out from this movie. So the first thing that I found okay from this movie was the score. Not the musicals, the score made by... Okay, sorry, I'm gonna mispronounce this name for sure. But if you know me, you know that my English isn't perfect. So imagine me saying a name from another language. LMAO. Hildur Guðnadóttir. I hope I said it correctly. The score is essentially a remix of the first one. So that's why I'm putting it in the okay part of this video. It wasn't bad, it was good, but it wasn't anything surprising or new, you know? It was just a remix of the old score. So shout out to the composer. You did a great job. But it wasn't anything new or special, you know, it was just a remix, like I said. Also, the costumes and the makeups were pretty okay. It looked good. Wasn't anything amazing, you know, but it was good. It looked nice, and that's pretty much it. That's all I have to say in the okay part of this video, actually. So if there's some things that I haven't mentioned yet, it's because they're going straight up into the next part of the video, which is about what I disliked in this movie. This list will be long, so be ready. First of all, the musical aspect of the movie was not good. Like, the problem I have with it is not the fact that it is a musical, but it's the fact that it brings nothing to the story. The movie goes on, and sometimes there's some breaks coming from Joker or Harley Quinn because they start to sing randomly. And I feel like it catches you so off guard. It just makes it funny, you know? The singing is not that bad, you know? Well, Gaga's singing is not that bad, but Joaquin, oh my god, I cannot listen to this man sing. He's not that great of a singer. But you know, overall, the music parts weren't enjoyable. I feel like the singing was just there to create a whole ass album out of this movie, you know? They were there just so Warner could have the minimum amount of music required to make an album, you know? It really made the pacing of this movie too slow, and it really made the movie too long for what it is. To be honest, I was about to fall asleep in the theater, you know? So the other aspect that I just talked about, but I wanted to go more on about, is the pacing of this movie, because it's another point that I didn't like about this movie. The pacing overall felt too slow. Mostly because the musicals were going on like forever. There were too many songs, honestly, and they weren't that good, and they didn't bring anything to the story. They were just there to, I guess, do a Martin Scorsese moment like Absolute Cinema or something, just because they looked beautiful. And I feel like this musical was in the movie just because they casted Lady Gaga, you know? This movie could have been much better, I believe, without the musical parts of it. And it's no secret, Gaga is a really good singer, so it kind of makes sense why they wanted to make her sing in this movie. But it really felt out of place and didn't work out at all. Another thing that I disliked about this movie is the relationship between Arthur and Harley. And that's mostly because of Harley. Like, I get why Arthur was attached to her. She came out of nowhere and started talking to him randomly and saying stuff that he relates to, and they figure out that they have a lot of stuff in common. And so I understand that Arthur attached himself to her because for his whole life he got rejected over and over again. And so I understand why Arthur started to simp for her. He found someone that appreciates him for what he is. Well, correction, for what people know him for, which means being Joker. And that's what I didn't like in this relationship. The way Harley's perception of Arthur was shown throughout the movie. The fact that she liked the Joker and not Arthur is so confusing throughout this whole movie. It was never said in the first place why she liked the Joker, you know? The only thing I remember from this relationship is that she wanted to build a mountain with him. But yeah, that's all I remember. A f***ing mountain. And the way she tried to make contact with him in the first place is so confusing. Like, we don't know how a psychiatrist like her, being in a rich family, turns out the way she did. Like, it made no sense at all. There were so many missing details in this relationship. They left us with some holes, to be honest, and they were not filled at all. Another thing that I didn't like about this movie is the way it clowned on their audience. What I mean by that is how they shit on the first movie and on Arthur's character. The fans of Joker are portrayed as Harley Quinn. People who fell in love with the idea of Joker, but did not give a single damn about Arthur's mental illness and who he is. They idolize this Joker persona, but do not give a f about who's behind it, you know? And it's pretty well shown during that scene at the end in the stairs with Harley. We're just like her. It's the message the producers give to us. We're as bad as her. So yes, producers mocking their audience. What a great way to profit from a movie. But it's not just that. It's also the way they shit on Arthur's character throughout this movie, especially on his Joker persona. During the whole movie, Arthur switches up his opinion on being the Joker or not, and it's too confusing for me. The pressure he has on his shoulders, you know, it got to him. And it's okay, I get that, you know? And that made him wanting to be just Arthur and not the Joker. And it's okay, I don't hate this idea, but you see, I was actually okay with the idea of a dark and sad Joker in the first movie, you know? I like that idea, but the idea of having a Joker who doesn't want to be the Joker in a Joker movie doesn't make sense to me. I feel like they made this movie in the first place to mock the people idolizing Joker after the first movie came out, you know? And you know what the problem is with that? It's that you shit on your audience. So of course the audience won't like the movie. What are you thinking about, you know? They came into the theaters wanting to watch a Joker movie, not a movie about a mentally ill guy rethinking about his whole life and singing in random moments during 2 hours. I just don't think the producers and the director understood their audience and what they wanted. And I think it's one of the reasons why this movie failed. And you know, I think the argument I just made is actually bad because I know you can make movies by surprising your audience by giving them not something they were expecting, you know? And it's okay to take that direction. You should do that, but you should not shit on your audience, you know? You should respect who is paying to watch your movies, you know? And you know, I think this sequel, and that's another point that I'm going to go about, the sequel ruins its predecessor. You see, while the first movie had an incredible build-up until the end, the second movie destroys it all. The second movie just mocks everyone, like I said, that idolized Joker, and they wanted to demonstrate that very clearly. And so they did. And how did they do it? Well, by making Arthur a boring ass character. And he's just not fun to watch at all. And you know, he's not even a little bit interesting to be the least. And you know, when you have boring characters that are not interesting, well, you make a boring movie, you know? And even so, in the first movie, Arthur is the same guy, but in this first movie, it was actually interesting, you know? We got to understand his mental illness and where he comes from, you know? How did that happen? How did he become Joker, you know? But I feel like in the second movie, they just wanted to portray his character as a crazy guy singing out randomly because of Lady Gaga, you know? And I feel that so many moments from the first movie were reused for funny haha purposes, you know? Like, oh my god, there's the scene from the bathroom dance, you know? But it doesn't add anything to the story. I feel like they tried to make a fan service that didn't work. There was no purpose at all to put these scenes back, you know? And I feel like this fan service doesn't pass the vibe check at all. If you can even call that fan service, you know? And after experiencing the sequel, you'll never watch the original one in the same way. You will not like it as much as you did after watching the sequel. And that is for the worst. So if you don't want to ruin your perception of the first Joker movie, I don't think you should watch its sequel then. I don't recommend it to you. Now that I have told you what I think of this movie, I wanted to mention two last things before concluding. The first thing being, we can finally say that Jared Leto's Joker is not the worst Joker at the end, objectively wise.
Oh my god, bro.
If we talk about performances, of course Joaquin Phoenix clears Jared Leto so much. But as in terms of character, Joaquin Phoenix is the worst Joker ever, you know? Well, technically, he's not even the Joker anymore, and he never was. That brings us to the second thing I wanted to mention before concluding. Todd Phillips said that Arthur was never the Joker. Quote, he's always been Arthur Fleck. He's never been this thing that's been put upon him. This idea that Gotham people put on him, that he represents. He's an unwitting icon. This thing was placed on him, and he doesn't want to live as a fake anymore. He wants to be who he is. Well, that's sad. Like, I get it. He didn't want to be the Joker in the second movie, but I don't see it making sense in the first one. Gotham didn't put this on him. He did it during Murray's show when he killed him. The only thing that made him change his mind is the reception he got. Honestly, I hate this so much. Why can't they just follow what they established at the end of their first movie? It's like they didn't even like their first movie at all. It's insane to me. But like I said, this sequel should not have been made in the first place. So it's their loss, I guess. In conclusion, this movie wasn't good. I'd rather listen to KSI's new song on loop instead of watching a second time Joker Folie Deux. And I'm gonna make a bold statement here. In a couple of years, I believe that people will say that this movie was ahead of its time. Why do you ask me? Honestly, we live in a society. I cannot even say that without laughing anymore. We live in a society where people change opinions so often. And with time, I feel like the general consensus of this movie will change. I don't have reasons for it. I just feel like this will happen somehow. And now I want to know, what did y'all guys think of this movie? Leave a comment down below because I'm really curious on your opinions about it. Leave a like or dislike if you want. Subscribe if you want more content like this. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.